Welcome to Signed, Conversations with Digital Mavericks. Today we have sexologist and intimacy expert Shan Boodram, also a best-selling author. She is a certified sex educator with a master's degree in psychology. She's also the host of a very enlightening and very entertaining podcast called Lovers. She recently put out her very own masterclass called The Art of Sex Appeal, which is incredible. I had a chance to watch it, and it's amazing. Welcome to the show, Shan Boodram. Signed, Conversations with Digital Mavericks. So I looked back, and I think we've been working together since 2017. Those were like the last emails I could find, and I'm like, 8 years. Yes.
That seems about right, because I think I started working with Adam shortly before that. And I don't know, Adam and my manager, when you guys started working together, but he was like, there's this woman named Anita. She is from Toronto. She's also Indian. You guys would hit it off. And so when we went to New York, we ended up meeting with you. And I feel like at that time, you didn't have kids, or you had just had one, but it was really early.
No, because my first was 2018. So I don't think I met you before that for sure, because there's proof of us working together from 2017. But I do remember meeting you. It was a real quick meeting in New York. I think that you were getting changed. Like you were like literally maybe had just gotten off a flight and you were headed to somewhere, like some appearance or something. And it was very quick, but we connected, and thankfully we've been working together ever since. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. Obviously you're an incredible person and client. And I'm glad you mentioned this, because I was gonna talk about this. Funny enough, we actually have a lot in common. We are both Canadian. We both have, I'm 100% Indian, which nobody knows because I'm so light-skinned, but both my parents are Indian. We both studied in Canada, so we both went to school there. And that's where our stories start to go in completely different directions.
But not. I mean, we're both working in entertainment. We're both moms of 2 kids, both married to Americans.
Absolutely. Yes. Got that green card.
I have my citizenship, so there you go. I might be a step ahead of you on the immigration journey. But I think that there's a lot of links between us. And I remember I saw you when you were about to give birth to your second baby, and I was just starting to think about having kids. And so you really gave me a lot of great advice on how to tackle being a working mom, and a lot of seeing your success and how you were able to incorporate your business and your livelihood with your motherhood was a great inspiration and driving force for me for having kids. So I tend to think that we have a lot in common, and that's because I look up to you and model a lot of my life after you.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. That's incredibly kind of you, and I appreciate that. And I remember that meeting. We were in Williamsburg. We had lunch, again, with Adam Krasner, your manager, and I do remember that we talked a lot about it. And I definitely, I'm so curious to hear, like, now you've got your 2 beautiful girls. How's it going?
Better every day, girl. Better every day.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. Well, so my kids are 7 and 5, and your kids are a couple years behind.
They're 2 and 4, but my oldest will be 5 in November. My youngest will be 3 in August. So I'm going to have to say 3 and 5, but probably the next 6 months or so. But right now I get to say 2 and 4, which I love that. I think I'm going to mourn when they're 7 and 5, because people tend to be like, oh, okay, you got it now. And 2 and 4, everyone's like, whoa, you're still in it. I'm like, let me tell you, yes, I absolutely am.
Oh, yeah.
We're going through a thing right now where the youngest coughs every night before she's about to fall asleep. She coughs until she throws up. So there's just always towels and like bed sheets hanging over our banister, and it's messy. It's a lot. And caring for people who the world is trying to kill them, and trying to protect those small people,
or they're trying to kill themselves somehow, accidentally.
It's a lot.
Running into traffic and whatnot. Yeah,
they don't have emotional regulation, and they're learning about themselves and the world, and they're doing that while living in close proximity to another human being who also doesn't have emotional regulation, which is their sibling. So it's definitely a lot. But I mean, all the things they say that are so cliche are true. It's the moment where they hold your hand. My daughter, actually, I think she's gotten to know this. At the end of the day, because she wants to stay up longer, she will just say the most incredible things to me. She'll be like, Mom, my dream is to be your best friend. Mom, I just love you so much. And she just prolong staying up and just like tell me these like lovely things. So there's so many moments, and you get to see them do something for the first time. We went rock climbing with them yesterday. Their dad was so freaked out, but they were so courageous. So like there's like all these like really great moments, and it keeps getting better the less that they throw up and poop everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. And that sums it up. Yeah, I mean, I've never felt my heart explode before I had kids. So, and explode in the best possible way. So, yeah, I can totally relate to you on that. So let's go right back to the beginning. Let's go to Shan pre-kid, Shan pre-Jared, pre-creator. So I listened to your podcast when you were on Dax Shepard's podcast, Armchair Expert. Now here you are unsigned. I love it. From Dax Shepard to Anita Sharma.
Dreams come true.
From 20 million or 50 million downloads to 5, here we are. But I thank you for taking the time. So on that podcast, you would explain that, when you were younger, you always had a fascination with bodies and sex, curious about it. So tell me about that, how it all kind of started.
Yeah,
especially, sorry to interrupt, especially considering your upbringing, which was fairly conservative, as was my own.
Yeah, I think most of us millennials, and I'm not sure, I'm interested for Gen Alpha, which is my kids' generation, but maybe millennials and even Gen Zs and certainly Gen X and boomers can relate to not growing up in an environment that educated you about sex or informed you even about relationships. And so sex ed has kind of been a long-running bad joke, a multi-generational, multi-ethnic, multi-racial human joke, right? Like we all kind of experience this no matter if we grew up in Pakistan or we grew up in Pickering, which is the city in Toronto that I grew up in.
Which I know, of course, being Canadian, yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly.
You don't have to explain.
So I think that that my parents were both Caribbean and they sent me to a Catholic school. So all in all, this part of myself was just seen as very negative. And later on, actually, I did a sexology course, and one of our curriculums was this age by age normal sexual behavior course where we learned normal in terms of average. What is the average age of first genital exploration, average age of first crush, first kiss, et cetera, et cetera. And it was such a mind-blowing course for me because I realized that I thought I was fast, abnormal, something was wrong with me, I was lewd, but I was actually almost dead smack in what the average number is, all the way up actually until my sexual debut, which happened at age 16. And again, even when that happened, when I first had sex and my parents found out, they made it seem like I did something so terrible to them. Like I went out of my way to harm them. Like that's just how personal they took it.
Yeah, a lot of shame associated with sex.
A lot of shame for them as parents. Like I failed. Yeah. How could I do this? How could you do this to me? And I remember taking that course, and when I was probably 30 years old, I was away with them, and I said, hey, like I'm taking this course right now about normal sexual behavior, and I have a question for you. When I started walking, did you push me down because you weren't ready for me to walk? Did you get mad at me because you didn't have guardrails up yet or you weren't anticipating that? Like, no, like you saw that my body was developing in a certain way, and then you adjusted your parenting to suit that. And why was it when I started to become sexually interested, you didn't take that approach? Like you made it seem like I was doing something bad when I was just responding to my body, my own development. And then I started a good conversation between us, and we now, of course, have a much better relationship around sex and intimacy. And I had a wonderful childhood. That was just one particular part that was very challenging for my parents, and they will admit to that. But that to be said, I definitely was very interested in intimacy and the body and touch and crushes, but I would say it in a very age-appropriate way.
What's interesting about you is that you're actually a legitimate expert. Like these days on the internet, it's like everyone's a self-proclaimed expert, but you've actually studied and, you've taken the time and you have a master's and you continue to study, and you continue to learn. And I think you deserve a lot of credit for that. I think thankfully you've been recognized for that because everybody's like, a self-proclaimed expert on the internet. You are actually a legit expert. So kudos to you. And in 2009, you published a book, your first book called Laid, Young People's Experiences with Sex in an Easy Access Culture. So that sounds like sort of a natural progression for you. You were interested, you wrote a book. I mean, you were so young. You wrote a book. That's incredible. So what compelled you to write the book? Was it just that there was nothing, nothing else out there? I mean, besides Sue Johansson?
100%. Yes, exactly that. Truly, essentially what happened is I was really interested in sex, very heavily discouraged from a younger age. When I got a little bit older and hormones kicked into play, I now had the natural interest plus the body chemistry and the social awareness that this would make my parents and elders be upset with me. So I essentially was like, okay, well, I can't tell them, but I want to learn. So let me watch porn. Let me read books. Let me find anything I can find about this topic, but keep it secret. And in essence, I filled my brain up with bad information. So when I started to legitimately engage with it, I was having, as one would anticipate, a very bad time. I had lots of sexual experiences, no orgasms, very low self-esteem, lack of understanding of consent. I was sexually assaulted in my teen years. I had multiple trips to the sexual health clinic because I wasn't using protection, or I was with people who weren't prioritizing my protection. And all of this was kind of done in secret. And when I went away to college, I went to Coppin State University in Baltimore on a scholarship for a year. But when I went away there, I had an opportunity to actually sit with my teammates, right? Because I was around the same group of girls day in, day out. And you realize this coming from Canada to America, everything is just so much more intense over here. So I ran track in Canada, and it was 3 times a week, a track meet once every month. In America, it was such a practice in the morning, practice in the night, compete every weekend. Fridays, you're staying in, you're doing study hall with your teammates. So you got really close with this group. And we started having these honest conversations about sex. And I realized I wasn't alone as I thought I was, and I wasn't broken. And that really fueled me to say, hang on a second, if I feel this way, maybe others have felt the same. So I started really researching and learning. And by the time I decided not to renew my scholarship and go to school in Canada, I went to school for journalism. And day one of journalism school, they tell you write what you know. You know sports, you become a sports reporter. You know entertainment, you become an entertainment reporter. And I was like, well, I know fucking, so let me write about that. Let that be my thing. So that's how my book came about, because I spent my entire college education diving into that topic and then really honing in on what that premise originally was, is how do I get real people's stories, their lived experiences, and find the truth and the lesson in that. Because what I found is that there were a lot of really good information in nonfiction books, but all of the storylines and the good-looking people and the interest component was in fiction. So I was like, someone needs to merge the two and make real life just as interesting. Sex ed essentially needs to utilize the sex sells component. So that's what LAID was, and that came out in 2009 when I was 24 years old.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't even know about the whole Baltimore piece. That's so interesting. I didn't realize that you went to school there. I mean, I love women. I love other women, and the fact that we're such a resource for each other. And, you were talking about being a mother, but that doesn't surprise me at all. It's you meet other women, we talk to each other, it's a community, and you learn from each other. And that's really interesting. I didn't know about the Baltimore piece. So you get to Toronto, you write a book. How do you get to LA from Toronto?
Okay, what's the gap? So 24 years old, that book came out. 29 years old, I moved to Los Angeles. So in between those 5 years, it's probably the hardest 5 years of my life, 6 years of my life. I wrote a book without a social media following. This is kind of pre-real following anyways. I think Facebook was out.
I mean,
maybe MySpace.
That's way early.
Yeah, so
for social
in essence,
media.
The book was a flop. Of course.
Right.
So
there's no marketing dollars behind it.
Right.
Back then it would have to be traditional marketing.
And it was done by a feminist press, which was a small imprint. Jessica Valenti was the starring feminist author who was on this imprint. It was called Seal Press, but nothing happened with it. So that was disappointing. And so in essence, I started just trying to live and make money. So I graduated from print journalism. I then got a sex ed certification at University of Toronto, but it was obviously not a bulk of jobs for sex educators.
Right.
So I ended up becoming a wedding photographer, and I did background in movies, which is a lot of people strangely will watch Mean Girls and be like, are you in the opening scene bumping Lindsay Lohan? Or people will watch Degrassi, they'll be like, are you sitting behind Craig in episode 75? And there's a million shows that I did in that 7-year span where I did background work, but that's what I did to keep myself afloat. And
and there's that work in Toronto, frankly. I mean, you can get the bank.
Hollywood North.
Right, exactly. And by the way, that Mean Girls scene is iconic, Shan. So as far as I'm concerned, you made Lindsay Lohan and not the other way around.
You are crazy for saying that.
Absolutely.
But it just, I just in essence just did what I could to get by. And then in around 2014, 2013 or so, I was living with a romantic partner, doing wedding photography full time, completely miserable. Just not a healthy relationship, not feeling very good or inspired about my life. And looking around, you're like, this is adulthood, I guess. Like, this is what they mean by, adulting is hard. This is what they mean when they say relationships are hard work. I remember being at a restaurant on New Year's Eve with my partner, and I was so sad. We're sitting across from each other. We went to get takeout because he had to go to a party afterwards that I wasn't invited to. So I was going to go back to my apartment by myself.
I mean, New Year's Eve is terrible enough as it is. It's just so much pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're sitting across from each other, and I remember looking behind him, and there was this thing on the wall that said, look inside yourself, and all you have is love, love, love. That's all you'll ever need. And I thought, okay, I can love myself enough for the both of us. Like, I can love him enough to account for how little I feel like I love my life and love the world. And that's kind of like the life that I was settling into. Then I got a random email from a producer on a BET show that was like, we're looking for a woman sex expert for this pilot that we're doing. Would you be interested in coming to LA to audition? I still to this day don't know how she found my email. Her name is Monique Chanot. And I ended up going to Los Angeles for that. I got the show, I got the job. I definitely was auditioning a lot, but that BET one was the first one that was really in my field, and thankfully, the first one that I landed.
You get the BET gig, doesn't get picked up, must be hugely disappointing for you, but you're in LA, right? So
yeah, I actually wasn't in LA. I was still in Toronto, but the job got declined, but my visa got approved. So I just sat on it for a while. I didn't actually move because I was like, I'm not moving for no reason. And I live with somebody and I have a life here, and I had wedding clients and stuff. So I was like, I'm just going to keep waiting until another opportunity comes. A year passed, and of course you're not there, so you're not privy to anything. I don't have an agent or anything. And then I just was like, do you remember McCain Deep Dish?
Of course. McCain is a Canadian family that's very wealthy with a very big food business. Those deep dish cakes are the best.
Yeah. So I had a McCain Deep Dish billboard outside of my apartment window. Because I was right above the QEW. Do you remember the highway?
Yeah,
it's
right still there.
That highway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't know why that highway's ridiculous. It's like a highway that's in the sky that constantly falls apart. It's always kind of crumbling, and there's always terrible traffic on it.
I mean, it sounds like every highway in New York City, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just staring at that billboard day after day, crying. And I remember one day I was just staring at it in this kind of trance, and I'm like, I know that I've told myself that this is what life is, but fuck it, what if it's not supposed to be like this? And then that thought just, I decided I was going to go to LA with nothing. Like the standard story. I was going to go in my car and see what I could do. I didn't break up with my partner, but I told him that we'd be long distance. And I broke my lease. And I remember my landlord in Toronto was like, I'm going to make sure that you never are able to rent here ever again.
Oh, God. You're like, thank God, I'm out of here.
Didn't need it. Never needed to, you piece of shit.
Exactly. Jeez, why are people so mean? I don't like that people are mean to you, Shan. That makes me mad.
And for what? You know what it is. I was probably 28, so I wasn't in my young 20s, but you know what it is. Nobody wants that kind of scenario. But I packed up my stuff. I sold some of my camera equipment, which gave me a nice buffer, I think of $3,000 to $5,000. And then I moved to Los Angeles, slept on my friend Angela Dugan's couch. And then Tommy B Photography was this photographer that I met who owned a photo booth business. And then I started working for him doing freelance gigs under the table, which I'm a citizen now, so I can say that. Legally, per your immigration, you can only work in this specific thing.
These days, we might have to take that out, but Yeah,
Right.
we'll think about it.
Yeah, it's what I did to stay afloat. And, I had a year of struggling with one day of a dream come true where I would get booked on a show to be a guest speaker. And I'm like, wow, this is the feeling. And the next year you'd get a week, you'd get booked on a show. And then I did like 5 pilots. And so all of it just kind of kept building my confidence. And then next thing you know, I decided to start a YouTube channel.
Yes.
And that was me saying yes to myself, and kind of the rest is history from there.
So when did you post first on social media, whether YouTube or Facebook or whatever it was back then, where you realized that post somehow connected with people? Or like, what was your first post that had impact, where you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to continue to do?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think, like, because there's different times. Like when my book came out in 2009, I did like make content around that. I don't know if anything like particularly connected or landed in that sort of big way, but I had a little something. I was able to go on MTV with Sue Johansson. They had a sex ed series. So I did that like really early on, maybe even like 2007 in my career. So I had little moments where I got a little look here and there.
And just to explain for the 5 listeners that we have, just to explain to my family. No, but Sue Johansson was a sex expert in Canada, and she was kind of ahead of her time back in the day. And I remember being a kid and watching her, by the way, on cable access with her banana and the condoms. And my friends and I would have sleepovers and watch it after our parents went to sleep because we thought it was hilarious, because we'd never seen anybody do anything like that. Sadly, she passed in 2023, but I just wanted to explain the reference because only you and I are going to get who Sue Johansson is, and any other Canadian listening to this.
Sex in a hot tub, okay? Now, the hot tub has got chlorine in it, hasn't it? Absolutely, got chlorine in it. I know that.
It seems like you started posting on social media and you liked it. Like, it seems like you liked it and you just kept at it. And I remember your early videos. Like, I remember talking about being like in a non-monogamous relationship and things. Like, I was like, wow, like this woman is so cool. Like, I've never heard anybody talk about this stuff openly. And then Jared, your now husband, would like come on, and you guys you were like the sexiest, coolest couple, talking like so open, and you still are, but talking so openly about this stuff, and I'd never seen anything like it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, so it was kind of 2000, to answer your question, the first big video I had, I think, was the biggest mistake that women make during sex. And then, of course, I made the biggest mistake that men make, the biggest mistake that puppies make, the biggest mistake that cupcakes make. When you get something that works on YouTube, you're like, let me do this in so many different ways. But in essence, I did a pilot for MTV called Unprotected Text, which was helping.
That's amazing.
Such a good title. That's
a great title.
But that was a pilot that I did that I had so much faith in. I'm like, this is going to launch me. This is going to launch my career, all my hopes and dreams, all the saving, all the pain. When I moved to LA, it was definitely a better life because I was on my path and I was able to reinvent myself in so many ways. But I was impoverished, like really just constantly at $0 in my account. I actually was doing a tour with BET called Wrap It Up for HIV awareness. And I had so little money that they didn't pay you, but they covered your travel.
Right.
I would stress out about getting a car service to pick me up because I had no money to tip. So I would like overcompensate by talking and asking them so many questions.
Right.
I knew I couldn't tip them in the end. I'm like, let me just make it worth their while.
To convince them you're a nice person, yeah.
But later on, I learned that the company tips on your behalf. So I was just like, I didn't even need to do all that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's still good to know.
And you didn't have me negotiating your deals, Shan.
I didn't have anybody.
I would have had a car service for you.
Right. I didn't have anybody negotiating my deal. So I just mean to say, like, when this MTV show came, it felt like everything was happening for this. And there's a quote from Steve Jobs that says, you can't connect the dots looking forward, only looking backwards can you see how things have taken shape. So you have to move not based on knowledge, but on blind faith. And you have to have a real belief in something. And I just think that I often made the mistakes of connecting the dots moving forward. I would always do that of like, oh, okay, like if I get this job, then this will happen, then this, this. And I've already made this huge elaborate shape for my future that when the next dot didn't connect, I'd be completely crumbled and demolished. And I kind of kept doing that. So on this last time where, again, I put all of my hopes and dreams, and I was going to church and I'm like, God wants me to have this job. And I had an altar, like, this is the reason why this and that. I made everything kind of make sense. And so when it didn't come through, I was like, why am I waiting for somebody else to make my dream come true? I'm just going to go on YouTube and show these people exactly how I envision a show with me starring in it would look, how I envision sex education to look. And if they don't understand it, I'm going to show them so that they fully get it. And so YouTube really wasn't like a dream thing for me. It was more like, I'll do it until I get booked on a show. And it didn't really work out that way. It kind of became the main thing of my life. And to this day, even though my YouTube is no longer like my, strong social media presence,
except for your
I'll never
podcast.
Abandon it. Yeah, except for my podcast, yeah. But I'll never abandon it because it gave me everything.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that you're an OG client of mine, right? So I signed you pretty early on, and I can tell you before the internet and, social media became a thing, I worked mostly in indie film and I represented indie filmmakers, and they had no leverage. And, I've talked about this on this podcast before where, they'd sell their film, they'd toil for years, sell their film for $30K, never see another cent. And all of a sudden, I met a YouTuber who was pretty big, and just through happenstance and luck. And it was like a light bulb went off above my head. Having worked in that traditional world and struggled, to pay my own bills as a lawyer for 10 plus years, I was like, wow, there's no more fucking gatekeepers. People can create content and put it out there, and they're not beholden to anyone, and they're building their own communities. That was so exciting for me to have that realization and be like, this is what I want to do. These are the people I want to represent. And I love the fact that people like you and my other clients are putting out this incredible content and are able to build these communities. So I can completely relate to what you're saying. I witnessed it from a different, sort of position or perch, so to speak. I wasn't creating content at that time, but I can totally understand what you're saying. And I'm so glad you did it. I'm so glad you started and started posting and educating the world and, being such an asset in this space. And a female
Is there more stability as an entertainment lawyer who works for creators than there was as an entertainment lawyer who works for traditional talent?
So that's a great question, because I just had a conversation with somebody who got laid off because their firm got hurt so badly by the strikes. So we did not at all. And in fact, these sort of negative events that happen in, quote, traditional media, film and TV, like the SAG strike, the WGA strike, and COVID, my business tripled during those times. And, I tell people now, like, the creator economy is not the future. Like, this is the here and now. Like, this is not the future. This is the now. And so I feel incredibly lucky because we're so well positioned. We represent so many great people and work with so many great agents and managers. But this world has always excited me, even when it wasn't well respected, even when there wasn't this term, the creator economy. But yeah, we've been lucky. We have, we're definitely positioned to take advantage of the incredible growth. So the short answer is there is a lot more stability, I think, in what we're doing. And it'll be sort of interesting to see how it goes, because, this is a business where tides turn, and we'll see. But yeah, we've definitely been able to take advantage of this, all of this creator economy and all of this amazing content coming out. So I want to talk about the Lovers podcast. So formerly Lovers and Friends, and now called Lovers. And I'm not just saying this, I always loved your podcast. And what is really incredible to me is, how do you sit down and get people to be so intimate with you and have these really intimate conversations? Like, every podcast you do, every episode is like really deep, meaningful conversations. Like, give me some tips. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I think it's setting the intention ahead of time of, I tell people we're here to talk about one thing. So unlike other podcasts where you are going to cover, the gamut of like your favorite food to your whatever, like the mix of things, I'm just like, I want to talk about one lesson that you've learned about intimacy that has impacted the way that you love and have sex, or one or the other. And then I want you to tell me the story of how you learned that lesson, and then share any resources that have helped you deepen this understanding. And that's how everyone starts. So I think setting the intention for people that this is the depth in which I want to talk to you, and you need a topic that we can talk about for 40 minutes. So I will say off the bat that probably does majority of the work, and people want to impress, right? So they're going to try to think of something that's like very profound or very deep for them. I think the challenge I have sometimes with my podcast is like, I'll tell people the lesson doesn't have to be something vulnerable. You can literally be like, why I learned that wearing socks during orgasm is just the way to go. Yeah. It could be that. It could be like the best lube for anal sex.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like, the episode that we have this week was with an actor who was essentially saying, I'm with a really great person, but I don't feel the things I thought I was supposed to feel in love. Does that mean I'm with the wrong person, or that I have a trauma response to how I'm supposed to connect with people? And when you're in a relationship existingly, it's a very tender thing to talk about. So I guess I don't really have a long answer or a good answer as to why people kind of come with these really barren truths, other than we live in a world where we're so deprived of these kinds of conversations and people don't genuinely ask. So when someone does, you just want to seize the opportunity to talk about the thing that feels most bubbling for you, most pressing for you, even if it is something that's very tender. Because I certainly do not encourage people to talk about things that they could feel exposed from afterwards. I want it to be a joyful share. But I think, again, because people don't get a chance to share, period, they just really just want to go there. And I'm happy to do that with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think your point about setting the intention is a very important point, right? Like, you're like, this is what we're going to talk about, and this is, what I want to explore, because there is, but it's also you, right? I mean, obviously people are just comfortable sitting with you and they feel that they can trust you and talk to you. And your topics are also like really touch on sort of the cultural zeitgeist at the time, like what people are talking about, like the fuckboy episode, which I really liked, by the way. And that was really interesting because these days with fuckboy is a term where, like, you're talking about like the guys on Love Island and it's kind of a funny term, but I thought you guys got really deep on that topic and that issue, and he got really deep on it, which was really interesting. But yeah, I do think that your content is filling a space that is not being filled because it is these honest conversations about intimacy and sex. And the other thing that I think you do a great job of is intimacy is not just about sex. There's so many different ways to be intimate. And that also, I think, is important for people to realize that, and you're really great at like putting that message across or teaching that lesson that intimacy is much more than just intercourse and sex.
100%. Thank you for sharing that. And that's been an expansion for me, as time has gone on. I would say for the first, 10 years of my career, I really only focused on sex. And I felt like I got really good at that, very good at creating boundaries, really great at having orgasms, very great at understanding the human body. But the dating part was a real struggle for me. So then I was like, okay, let me try to master this thing because this has not been working out. And through that, again, it was kind of the same rinse and repeat cycle of my teens of like diving into books, reading everything scholastic, and then realizing there's great information, but it's not very accessible. So my second book, which came out in 2019, exactly 10 years later after Laid, was all about how to date, right? And if I do another book in a few more years, I'm sure it will be how to be in a meaningful long-term partnership where the two of you guys give birth together.
Well, right,
and not birth in terms
right?
of kids, right? In terms of, creating a full life. And my actual big challenge right now in my life is friendship and family. Mm-hmm. Because I can joyfully really say, like, I'm in such a season of complete ease with my husband. We have it's just such a joyful incredible season of ease. And I feel like I'm at a mountaintop of this moment. And not to say that it will be this way forever, but while it's so stable, it's allowing me to start expanding my vision of the other places that I might have neglected. And I think that friendship and family love, especially during COVID and after kids, those relationships really got stressed out. And so now I'm able to kind of refocus on that. So I love the ways in which my career continues to expand while also still not losing the truth of the heart of what I do. And I know that you've been with me on this journey too and watched me expand into different projects and trying to be mindful of not abandoning my base while still acknowledging that I am also growing and learning. And this topic really is so much more than sex. Although sex is really great too, and I'm sure if I just talked about that, it'd be fine.
Well, I definitely have some fun questions for you around sex, because I mean, we got to talk about sex at some point. But I want to touch on a couple of things you said. So you do, and you are really good at this. I feel like every couple of years you step back and you sort of assess your business and you say, like, you sort of, I mean, I don't know what you say exactly, but my perception is you're kind of reevaluating. But you're really good at doing that and at pivoting. And so why is that? Like, it sounds to me from what you just said, it's like different seasons of your life and, you know, you've grown as a person and gone from single to married to kids. Is that the impetus, or what is the impetus to sort of sit back and, like, you know, you pivot really well?
Oh, thank you. I want to answer this in two ways. One which is like the feel way, one which is the real way. And I don't know what is the right answer, but I'll give the real way too. Of when I first started doing well on YouTube, maybe when we first met or shortly before it, I met with an accounting firm, and their first thing was like, okay, well, you have about 1.5 years left until you lose relevancy. So let's try to set you up financially in order for you to actually be able to maintain some of the wealth that you accrue during this very limited time. And that's because the majority of creators will have a shelf life of around 2 years. So being able to pivot and expand and grow with your audience is extremely important in order to be relevant and to continue to have a business. So I think from that standpoint, I have to stay on my toes of, like, what do people need from me versus what have I provided in the past? And I want to be able to service people for life. Like, what's the LTR? Like lifetime retention clients. So rather than, because my audience right now, my audience that's like 60 plus is higher than my 13 to 17 audience. And my 18 to 24 audience is less than my 50 to 65. So that to be said,
that
like,
is so interesting.
Yeah, I think it's because
I never would have guessed that's the demo.
Yeah, but I think that's just because my content is just naturally a bit more mature and more thoughtful.
Right.
And if I wanted to, when I first started, my book Laid was written for people, I'd say ages 18 to 24. It was really for like 13 and up. You can't say that legally, right? But I wanted for young people who were just coming into their sexual self to have some guidance. And if I didn't evolve my business, I just have to keep continuing to try to find that audience. And I found that I really wanted to have an intimate connection with the people that I was teaching intimacy to. And in order to do that, my content has to grow and evolve with them. And I was just naturally growing and changing too and deepening my understanding. And there's, you know, I've figured out how to have a clitoral orgasm. So I don't necessarily need to do 20 more videos about that. Yeah, great. But, you know, when I first started, that was the big thing.
Sure.
In 2009, girl, the huge question was like, where is the clitoris? Like, that was in the cultural zeitgeist.
Right.
Where is this thing?
But, I mean, people are still asking that question, I feel like. But yeah.
Way less. Yeah. Substantially less. It's just not the thing that I get led with at every turn. So we've had, I always say this as an example of how we have evolved sexually as a society. When I first started in this space, the orgasm gap was 3 to 1. For every 3 orgasms a straight male was having, a woman was having 1. Today, the orgasm gap is 2 to 1. That's a huge amount of progress. And maybe in the next 5 years, 10 years, it'll be 1 to 1. So things are definitely improving.
Yeah, we can hope. We can hope, yes, that it gets there. So I'm interested in, you have 2 daughters now. Has your content changed and your approach to your content changed?
Yeah, for sure. Huge.
Yeah, like what you're putting out in the world, does it influence that?
Yeah, I think big time. A couple things have changed since kids. One, I stopped reading comments as much.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
That is because my mental health and my mood is not just about how I feel. My kids are emotionally dependent on it. And I learned about this thing called emotional leakage or emotional linkage, wherein your kids like come close to your body in order to learn how to feel. Because if mom's heart is racing and mom is nervous, they know that they should be nervous too, right? If mom is at ease, then they can be at ease. So if I'm hanging out with my kids,
pick up so much.
They
It's
pick
unbelievable.
up so much.
Yeah,
and it's a
so
gift,
much
right?
nonverbal. So much nonverbal.
To be able to co-regulate with them, right? Because when they're scared and they trip and fall, they have to come into a body that tells them the world is safe, like mom's got you. So if I'm hanging out with my kids, I pick up my phone and then I read a comment that's like, you dirty slut, I hope you go to hell and burn for eternity. And then I just like go back to my kids. Now they come close to me and my heart's racing and they're like, wait a second, mom, like what happened? Like there's a shift here. Like, and then they start to feel nervous without a stimulus because they don't understand why at any given time their mom is on edge. So I'd stop putting my body through that. Which I never should have really done anyways. I never was good at comment moderation or was never really considerate of those things, but I started being much more mindful about that. And then secondly, again, just I used to martyr myself a lot. I will say that in a probably not best term. There's probably a better way of explaining it. But in essence, I would share like kind of embarrassing, very sensitive, very vulnerable parts of my life in hopes of teaching others.
Right.
I would share really vulnerable parts of my relationship with Jared if we were going through a rough patch. I'm like, because there's a learning moment here. And then I did that last year for the last time because we had Jared's brother who worked for us. He ended up leaving us. So during the summer, the kids were off school for 6 weeks. We're entrepreneurs, so we don't get to stop working. So we're still working while the kids are home, and we didn't have any support. And Jared and I were just at each other because we were at our wits' end. The house was so messy. We were overworked. We were just so stressed. And I'm like, we should make a video right now that just talks about how we got through this time. And people were so cruel. They were so mean in the comments, so judgmental, and so like, but it was also, I did that, you know, and it was my best performing video that year, girl. What?
Sure.
I think
well, people love
day,
conflict. People love conflict.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Yes.
That performs well in the algorithm, conflict.
And I thought for a long time that I needed that in order to stay relevant. And then I just made a promise to myself after that. And I was like, I actually don't need to do this anymore. And I do still want to do it. That's why I created my lovers community. So I actually do have a community now of a small group of people, you know, who are paid, who I know by name. I know their story. They know mine. And contextually, they know more about my life. And I can share those kinds of experiences with them. I just don't do it anymore on social media.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable. And by the way, I'm glad you don't read the comments because it just infuriates me, these people who are complete cowards, by the way, faceless, nameless, behind a screen, talking shit is like, I have no respect for those people and it makes me really angry. And I have a lot of clients, especially female clients, dealing with these trolls. So I'm glad you don't read that anymore because you definitely don't deserve that. I did hear something really interesting that really stuck with me. I have one daughter. You have two daughters. I have a daughter and a son. But it was like, why do we have to teach our girls to protect ourselves? Why don't we just teach boys to respect women? Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, like it seems like a no-brainer, but we're so used to, you know, teaching our girls, like, if you go to a bar, don't leave your drink unattended. Like, teach the boys not to fucking roofie women. You know, like, why isn't anyone telling them that? And so, yeah, that stuck with me. But as somebody with a daughter now, I feel and even with my son too, I feel it's different. Your approach to everything changes.
Yeah, I know that we're in a season of like doom and gloom. The world is getting worse. People are getting worse. But in this particular area of intimacy, at least amongst the people in my zeitgeist, it's getting so much better. And I know so many amazing moms who are having these kinds of conversations with their sons, who are teaching them about equitability, who are not teaching them weaponized incompetence, who are teaching them about consent, and also sharing that information with their daughters. So I feel so hopeful. I love millennial parents, and I'm sure I'll love Gen Z parents because I do love Gen Z as well. But I go to the park and I see millennial parents, and I'm just blown away by them. So I have a lot of immense hope for the future.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think it is a really depressing time in the world right now. But I look at my kids and I'm like, those kids are going to fix it. Like, those kids are smart. They talk, they're communicating, they're open. Yeah, my daughter thinks the word vagina is the most hilarious word in the world. And my son is doing the whole, it's like, yeah, they're very funny about their private parts, penises and vaginas. They're at that age where they're talking about it and discovering it. And it's a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, it gives me hope as well. So let's talk about sex quickly, because we've got a sex expert on, so we got to talk about sex. I want to know the question that you're most asked around sex.
Differences in libido.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Mismatched libido, probably number one. Mm-hmm. Number two is confidence, like feeling confident in your sex appeal, feeling confident in your ability to attract people. Number three, I'd probably say, is around exploration of sex, whether that be opening up the relationship or trying different kinks. But so one is mismatched libido. Two would be for single people, confidence. And three, I think, is more just general. Everybody is trying to figure out, okay, I've been told that sex is the 5, 6, 7, 8, but I'm actually interested in 13, 14, and 15. Like, how do I get from the 8 to there? Those are the questions.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what is the strangest question you've ever been asked?
Oh, usually they're like questions around questions from men. I'd say I get a lot of questions from men that are really particular about, and I've also I'm reading Dopamine Nation right now. Have you read that book?
Okay. Mm-hmm. I've heard of it. I have not read it. Yeah.
It's good to read as an eye-opener, just to have more compassion around how insane this world is. I have children. We have children. And we have young children, and you have to do so much regulation for them, because you acknowledge that if you just let them eat whatever they wanted, they would just eat ice cream. If you just let them behave however they wanted, they would just smash things all the time. And so you have to be an adult who regulates, makes rules, creates structure. And in essence, a lot of people require that for their entire life. And not only do they not have that kind of structure anymore, and as the church has fallen apart, communities have fallen apart, there's less accountability, there's less, people don't go to work anymore, so there's not even a boss who's overseeing them. People are working from home and just kind of left to their own devices. They have unlimited access to the most addictive properties and tools and toys on the planet. Unlimited, unprecedented access to all of these things, and nobody who's really regulating their behavior in any capacity. And many of them singles don't even have a romantic partner to observe them. Yeah. So I'm just acknowledging that a lot of people are really, really lost right now, and they feel very out of control of their lives. And I do get a couple of questions from men in particular who are really struggling with porn addiction, really struggling just with impulse control, and don't really know how to start or end the cycle.
We're going to break into a lightning round. This is the last thing we do. This is a fun part. It's funny because we used to ask people all the same questions, and then we realized, no, we should tailor this to the people's expertise or, their content or what they're interested in. So I've got 5 questions for you. The first question, chocolate or oysters?
Chocolate.
Chocolate? I'm with you there.
Find me the person who picks oysters.
Well, it's the aphrodisiac thing. Why do people... Is that true? I don't eat seafood. Is this true?
Yeah, there's zinc in it, which can help to boost libido. But moreover, it's the sensory experience, right? It's like wet, it's slimy, it's kind of elegant, like a vulva. So,
yes, yeah, that's true. That's true. I will say I will pick chocolate any day over the wet, slimy oyster. But oysters have always been a thing. What is the most surprising fact about sex that you've discovered?
The most surprising fact, I think, interestingly, I'll just say what the most recent thing I've kind of learned about it. I've been thinking or talking about monogamy recently, and I think amongst animals on the planet, there's less than 4% that are genuinely monogamous, and even the most monogamous animals are only monogamous up to 88% of the time. Which means even if they mate for life, there's going to be some instance. And there's a strategy that's called, what is it called? It's called dual mate strategy, where in essence, even birds do this, where they'll have a mate with a nest, and then they'll be like, hold on, honey, I'm just going to go and like get some leaves. And then they just go and mate with somebody else.
Right.
And then so within any given like nest of eggs, there'll be 4 eggs, and one of them, there'll be a different baby daddy. But that's like from a evolutionary standpoint, it's to ensure that there's like some kind of genetic variety amongst them. And if the birds end up like co-mating the siblings, and at least there's like some differentiation. So there's actually like a strategy as to like why that happens. And people are like, why do people cheat? Why? And then if you get the evolutionary answer, that doesn't give you the permission, it just gives you the acknowledgement. And then when you're getting those feelings to step out, you don't look at it like it's got to be fate or it's got to be the gods. We must be made for each other. And instead it's like, girl, you're just a penguin.
Right.
Trying to get your 12% on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's like, like getting to the actual cause behind it it's always interesting to find those answers. If you could ban one outdated sex myth, what would it be?
Oh, the supreme orgasm is the vaginal only orgasm. It's a Freud myth that still persists to this day, that the clitoral orgasm is immature and that a real woman is able to orgasm from penetration alone, which that accounts for 2/3 at best. One-third at best. Studies will show it's actually lower because majority of the time where people are experiencing unassisted vaginal orgasms, there is some form of clitoral play through rubbing or through friction or the rule of thumb. But even in general, I'm not trying to knock anybody's way of receiving it, but the idea that there's like this superior way.
There's
like
just
alcohol.
one way to orgasm, right?
Like, oh, if you're not drinking this wine, or really seasoned drinkers drink this. It's like, whatever gets you drunk and
do what you
makes
like.
You have a great time. Do what you like, and
exactly.
You're not more mature, more special, or more elevated or chosen because you know how to ask for a rum and raisin, and I like my Moscato. We're both getting to the same space where we feel good about our bodies and are hopefully dancing a little bit looser, and like that's what it's about.
Yeah, I mean, I hope there's some men listening to this that hear that. Like, it's not all about getting a woman off, trying to get her to vaginal orgasm. So I think that's a very legitimate point. Just 2 more questions. What is one thing your audience doesn't know about you?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question for an oversharer.
I know, and you know what's so funny? All my creators that I talk to have trouble with this.
Yeah, because you're like,
I mean, it could be something mundane. I mean,
it's so new that it's like no one knows because it's so new, but I've started drumming.
Really? Playing the drums?
Yeah, like
a
hand
that's exciting.
drum. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Cool. What drove you to, what inspired that?
I love it. Like, do you know, like, any song that has, like, hand drums, like,
yeah.
Like, I love it. It just, like, gets me going. The Kanye West Lost in the World, it's the ending part that, who will survive in America? I would play that all the time at the end of my runs because it has these, like, really heavy drums.
Right.
It would just get me into that runner's high. So I love it. So I'm like, I want to be able to create this. And Jared is learning the guitar right now. So every night the girls go to bed and he's been playing the guitar and I'm like, oh, I want an instrument too.
Oh,
so
fun. Maybe that'll be your next evolution, Shan. You and Jared doing music together. I know Jared does
band.
Music. Yes, making the band. So my son plays the drums, by the way. I'm going to send you a video after this of him playing. It's very cute, but really into it. So last question, and this is always a funny one, and this is something I ask every guest on my podcast. If you were not a creator, what would you be?
Oh my goodness. I'd work for a creator.
Oh yeah?
I'm so good at it. I understand it so much. I'd work for another sex educator.
Right.
I have an employee who sits there, usually Yancy. Shout out to Yancy. I imported her from Canada. You know about this because I asked you for help on this. She is a sex educator who is great at graphic design, a good editor, did some work in photography, essentially kind of similar to me, kind of curated, piecemealed all the skills that you need. And I'm just so lucky to have found her. And I think that the only way I could have found her was going to Canada because everybody worth their salt who can have these skills in LA works for Mr. Beast. So I'm really glad that I was able to snatch her up. But I'm just so good at it. And I mentored Winnie Harlow.
Oh, nice.
I did her audition tape for her for America's Next Top Model. I was the first person to shoot her photos for her.
Yeah, I've seen you guys hanging out online in your videos and stuff. She's super cool too. So
yeah,
cool.
There was a time where it was like I could have worked for her because I was really good at it. I was good at organizing. I was good at seeing the vision, I ended up doing my own thing. But in a different life, like I'd be great at that. I would completely crush it. And I'm so suited for what I do for a living. I would just do it in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. So thank you so much, Shan, for taking all this time to talk to me. I know you're incredibly busy. I know firsthand you're incredibly busy because I know everything you're working on. And, you know, you've got 2 little beautiful babies. Not babies for much longer, but my babies will always be my babies. So that's what I call them. But thanks again. And it's so nice to be able to just sit and chat with you because we never get to do this. So this podcast is also a great excuse for me to do that.
Yeah. That's really the number one hack with podcasts, truly, is just getting to like have the kinds of, it's the intention, right?
Yeah.
And when you're on a podcast, you never look at your phone. You never, you just really lock in with people. So you can call it a podcast or call it coffee, but we all need this. And I'm grateful for the time, Anita, as always.
Signed, Conversations with Digital Mavericks.